Good morning, this is the Eager Beaver Show.
You are listening to a True North Eager Beaver Media Podcast. The True North Eager Beaver podcasts are proudly brought to you by our founding sponsors, the Miss V Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, your source for science fiction, fantasy, and cozy mysteries featuring a broad diversity of characters. CanadianTarot.com, your uniquely Canadian online eclectic tarot community and forum, and The Peppermaster, hot pepper sauces made from fresh farm ingredients to thrill your taste buds and expand your mind.
Well, good morning and hello, kits, and welcome to Season 3 of the True North Eager Beaver Interview Project, episode number 38. I'm your host, the Eager Beaver, pronouns he, him, hey, Mr. Beaver, eh? And with me, as always, is my good friend, Mr. Grizzly. Today, recording day is Monday, November 27th, 2023, for broadcast on Monday, December 4th, 2023. And if I stare into the future, according to the Weather Network, it's supposed to be raining today. Let's see how it turns out. We have a very, very special guest for you today because this is someone you have asked for. And since we like to help, we thought we would make it happen. And fortunately, the fine gentleman that we have with us today has agreed. But before we do anything else, let's do the most important thing we do on the show every day. Hello, Mr. Grizzly, and how's your mental health today?
Well, hey, Mr. Beaver, my mental health is, it's there. I have a raging migraine right now, so it's not as bad as it was about an hour ago. So I'll take that as a sign that things are improving. But yeah, it's just what it is. I'll live. I'll survive. It's what I do. It's what I do.
All right. Well, I'm sending you some calming energy, and hopefully, by the time this chat is over, the energy and the adrenaline will help that go away for you.
Let's hope so. Let's
hope so. But I know that you're very excited about this too. Our guest, as you may know, recorded a video that really resonated with us and with you because within it, you know, the theme of our show is because democracy is something you do. And this person sent a message of engagement, something that happened, and he decided that he was going to become even more engaged than he was. We have an interview with someone from the West Coast, which we very rarely get to do because of the time difference. He lives on Vancouver Island, and he has been a high school history, social studies, civilizations, careers, and leadership teacher for 33 years. And you know that here at the Beaver Lodge, we particularly love teachers.
Oh, yes.
Yes. So without any further ado, because we want to get right into it, please put your paws up and give a round of applause for Mr. Tim Krutzman.
I like that. That's good.
I actually stole that from a friend of mine, actually. A round of applause.
It's great being here, gentlemen. Thanks for the invite. I appreciate it.
Thanks for coming out. We appreciate it.
Yeah, very much. Now, kids, if you see our fine guest, you probably know what video we are talking about. um, you had put out a video when the Prime Minister was out one night at dinner, and the restaurant had been surrounded by protesters. And that really triggered something within you. And I remember in your video, you said that this was like your X attempt at it because it was maybe a little too real or raw, a little too raw.
Correct.
And you wanted to have the passion, but you also didn't want to be flying off the deep end because you don't want stuff to get in the way of your message.
Correct.
And something did get in the way of your message at one point, and you decided to take the video down. At
Correct.
one point, yeah, because and for a good reason, absolutely. But we were left wondering at that point, it's like, because a kid had asked us, "Could you please send us that video?" And then we couldn't find it. I was like, "Well, it's gone. Why did he take it down?" And then you had issued something else. I was like, that's why. So I would like to first ask you to sort of set the stage, what it was, so that we could remind the kids that had happened, and what was it that went click within you that made you put out that particular video, because this was clearly not your first video.
Correct.
Right. So what did you see? To you, what had happened, and what was it? What was that moment that said, "I need to do something about this specifically"?
Well, first of all, let me confess to being a federal liberal. Okay, so there's a bit of that, but it goes much further back than that. I did a video, a post when Trudeau and Sophie separated, and I know that the venom towards not just him but the family really kind of grated on me. And my message at that point was, some of the greatest accomplishments have been accomplished by men and women who've gone through horrific things in their life, not the least of which is divorce. I mean, Pierre Trudeau established the Charter of Rights and Freedoms after his separation with Margaret.
Right.
And then the constant Trudeaus. I mean, any point, any comment that those of us on the center left, even just slightly center right, if you make a comment in support of the Prime Minister, of support of the government's initiatives, you're a Trudeau, a liptard.
Yeah.
On and on it goes. The fact that convoyers wanted to take him down, and yet at the same time complained that he wouldn't meet with them, I found quite extraordinary and hypocritical.
Right.
I just thought, here you are threatening his life, and now you're getting choked that he's not coming out and speaking with you. And then I thought that the leader of the opposition going to meet with them was beyond the pale. So this thing that occurred for me that night was just building over months. I also fundamentally believe that no politician, none, I made that clear in a number of posts, that as much as I despise and disdain the leadership or lack thereof of Mr. Poilievre, I would not wish this on him at all. I would not want his family to endure this, or Mr. Singh, or the leader of the bloc. I know that Mr. Truman said, if you can't stand the heat, get out of the kitchen. I know that men and women that put their name forward and put it on the ballot, they take a certain risk. But I also believe that these men and women are taking a risk on our behalf, and that they should be accorded some measure of privacy. This whole thing about him and the days off, Jesus friggin' Murphy, if these people are honest with themselves, they know, if they're honest, they know that the Prime Minister of Canada is 24/7.
That's right.
Right.
You're honestly thinking that he's at Tofino on the beach, completely detached from what's happening in Canada. You're a fool.
Yes.
And I'll be the first to admit that Mr. Trudeau can be a bit, goofy at times, for sure. But that does not precipitate the hate that is directed towards him. I mean, I remember what I did in 2015. Instead of yelling at John Duncan as he was unveiling a new habitat for the wildlife in the area. I was walking by on a power walk here in the Comox Valley, and the mayors were there, and the town councilors, and the who's who of the conservative group here in town. And my first reaction was, yeah, John, you're full of shit. You pulled out of the Kyoto Accord. Are you allowed to swear on the show?
Yeah.
Okay. I apologize.
We do it for adults.
Okay.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Oh, sorry. Okay. But I realized that it was inappropriate. That John Duncan was the member of parliament, and whether they pulled out of Kyoto, whether they were silencing scientists at Environments Canada, that wasn't the time or place. So what I decided to do was get involved in the election campaign, and I worked hard. I worked with the Gord Johns campaign, because the Liberal in this area just doesn't, stand a chance. And in my view, I thought, if I can help get Gord Johns in, and he's turned out to be quite a good MP, by the way, if I can get Gord Johns in, that's one less seat that Mr. Harper will get.
Right.
And for me, the way I look at it was, let's work within the system. Let's do what we can, as little as it may seem, to get Mr. Harper out, rather than yell and scream and rage at Mr. Trudeau. So what ended up happening is, I was at the grocery store, and the cashier said, "Did you hear what happened to Trudeau today?" And I said, "What are you talking about?" "Oh God, he was just surrounded at a restaurant, and they had to call in police." And I went, so I should have fact checked that it was a Palestinian protest and not a convoy or vaccine, which is why I took it down. But then I did make that follow-up video saying my position still stands, that they crossed the line.
Yes.
Whatever their cause was, they crossed the line. If you have to bring in another 100 friggin' cops to protect the prime minister, you've taken those police agents from another area where they could be useful as well. I mean, who knows what other crimes could have happened without the cops there, right? So I was just sick and tired of it. And I'm sick and tired of people. And you see this on TikTok and other social media platforms. I'm sick and tired of people screaming at each other instead of debating policy.
Well, and that's the big issue. They scream slogans at one another that are nonsensical. They don't really have a foundational footing in any of the things that they're actually yelling or protesting or ranting and raving about. And then, of course, they'll start chanting "Bring it home," which, what does that even mean? It's just it's so over the top, ridiculous, and unacceptable behavior in polite society. And it's I saw you react, and I felt the same way. I felt the exact same way. And I didn't even know it was a Palestinian protest to begin with. I just thought it was more of the occupiers that sat in my city and my doorstep for 3 weeks. Turns out that wasn't the case, but they still behaved in the same manner, and it was wrong.
Yep.
And like you said, 100 extra police officers?
Yeah.
That's a huge drain on resources, and unnecessarily so. And what the hell were they thinking? What exactly can we do about a war taking place on the other side of the world between two states, countries? But what is the Prime Minister of Canada going to do? I mean, they're being ridiculous.
One of my former students who has I've attended the those rallies that we had in counter to the parents' rights rallies. I attended that, and one of my students saw me there and said, "I'm proud of you, Mr. Krutzman, and well done," and blah blah. But she took exception to my video because how else do we get the message across to Trudeau? And I said to her, "Do you honestly think he isn't aware of your position? Do you honestly think that he is?" What's really interesting is that someone has said to me, "You're pro-genocide. You're in favor of mass killing of Palestinians." And I said, "How did you get that out of me asking for the security of our national leader?"
Yeah.
The two are incongruous. They don't make sense. And I said to her, what I've done in the past is I've actually gone to John Duncan, the Conservative MP. And I got to tell you, one of the highlights of my political life was running into John Duncan 3 weeks ago at a trivia night, and he said to me, Tim, one of the things I've always appreciated is your kindness. You were always open to discussion, and I never had any crap from you, right?
Mhm.
But we always did debate.
Right.
I had my MP come and speak to my class on 2 occasions. John came and spoke to the class. I always try and get the MPs and the MLAs to come in and see the kids, the town councilors, etc. John's a human being.
Mhm.
I mean, he's married and he's had kids, and who knows the struggles if he's ever gone through it. I don't know the divorce story or anything I don't know if he's ever been divorced. I'm sure he's still married. I don't know. But that's the point. We don't know what these men and women in public life endure at the home front. And I know that Polyev is in this as a game.
Yes.
This is a play, and there is stuff he gets out of it. And that may be the case of the 338 members of parliament. Who knows how many, but I look at what Sean Fraser is doing. My God, I'm impressed with that guy. I mean, he could be prime minister the way he's acting. I just impressed. I gotta say, what I'm going to start doing on TikTok is profiles of the cabinet ministers in the Trudeau government, because some of them are pretty astounding.
You've been saying the same thing for a couple of while, and particularly with the last shuffle when we went through. And this person has experience there. This person's here. This person's an effective communicator. This person can do politics in full sentences. If you sit back and you go through them one by one, some don't have a lot of profile because their ministries don't allow for it. But Anand, Jolie, Freeland, Wilkinson, Boissonneau, O'Regan, Fraser, Gould, Haidu.
I know.
You can leave them alone in a room unsupervised with matches.
Yes.
And they will speak to you like a human being, and they will know their file.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's impressive.
It is.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead, please.
No, it just to summate that your original question. I've had it. In fact, I posted a video. I was telling Grizzly there at the beginning, where I posted a video about a month ago how religion is a major cause of war, and this one young lady took issue with that today. And I always, if someone doesn't call me names and if someone doesn't swear, I will engage and see where it goes.
Yes.
And so I did. I engaged her. And what we've now done is we're following each other, and we're now going to message and have a discussion in more detail. And I may not agree with her, but there's a civility there.
Right.
And that's what's disappeared in the last few years. Like the civility's just gone tossed right out the window. Nobody wants to have a conversation anymore. They just want to scream in my face. And I mean, I'll ignore the noise as much as I can, but eventually, being the hockey playing Irish Catholic kid, I'm gonna push back. I'm a goaltender. I will get defensive because
absolutely. And there was a guy that posted on one of my videos that Trudeau should be killed, hung.
Yeah, I've heard a few people say that. I'm like, what is wrong with you?
So I
can't stand Polyev, but I don't want that to happen.
Absolutely. And so I called it out. And I said, here are the things that you're going to get blocked and deleted. Okay. Death threats, name calling. I mean, if you want to have a debate on policy, great. But if you're calling me a libtard, you're automatically deleted.
You're done.
It's done. And this one kid comes on, one guy says, "Oh, so you're all about censorship?" And I said, if you're espousing the death of the prime minister, yes. And I said, let me ask you this: would you be able to yell fire in a theater? We do put restrictions on freedom of expression in this country
for very good reason too, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The word, the language. Sorry, I was going to say the language of how that article in our Charter of Rights and Freedoms was written was done so for that specific reason. Putting, you have freedom of expression, but there are limitations on it as deemed so by civilized society, and that's important.
Well, given what you said about your 3 weeks, what I've taught for 33 years is that your freedoms extend as far as my nose.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Beverly McLaughlin wrote an incredible article. I wish I'd thought of it. But anyway, I'll send it to you guys. It's brilliant, where she talked about the convoyers and that she said, isn't it beautiful that you live in a country where at some point you'll be able to sue your government if you feel that you've been mistreated during this time, but your rights extend as far as another Canadian's nose.
That's right.
Right.
So when you're shutting down a bridge and costing the taxpayer $4 billion, that is a problem.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
I concur with you. So that incident happened, and you made the video, and in the video, not only did you denounce it, but you said that you were even going to get more engaged.
Correct.
So what I would like to know is, when you got involved to make sure that Mr. Duncan was no longer your MP, what did you do? And what is it that you plan to do more now that this has happened?
You know the expression, this is a hill I'm prepared to die on?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So what I've always taught is, what are you prepared to go door to door for, create on a social platform for, write letters for, go to the member's office for, debate in coffee houses for, write letters, go to rallies. Bobby Kennedy talked about the 4 dangers that prevented people from engaging in the political process. And one of the dangers, the 4th danger, he argued, was comfort. And what he said is that many of us are in ease and we'd rather detach from engagement because it's just easier and it's less stressful, and you don't have to fear the wrath of your fellows, was one of the comments he made. So what I really hope to do through social media and going door to door is engaging people on a human level and try and take the temperature down. What I did in the last, or it was 2015 election, was some door to door stuff, office work. It was more about social media discussion and that kind of stuff. What I mean by more is that I would actively get involved in helping run the campaign. I've already spoken to the constituency office here. I was an elections day chair for the Liberals here in BC in '96. So I've had some experience in running election day. I've helped nominate 2 candidates and got them elected as party as the standard bearer for the party. I got a BC Liberal nominated, and who's a dear friend, and I got an NDPer nominated. I was on his nominating committee, and people ask me, aren't those 2 exclusive, mutually exclusive? No, because both men are men of integrity. Don McRae and Andrew Black were both men of integrity. They wouldn't lie. Andrew Black always says, you can't go wrong doing the right thing. Well, that's an MLA I would love to have.
Yes.
And I just think that looking for it's hard to tell. No, it's not. You know what? It's not. It's not hard to tell who's telling you straight up. I don't believe it. And when I listen to Polyev, I believe that I'm getting shat on, to be honest. It's just a smarminess about him. And here's the other thing. When I listen to Trudeau, however dramatic he may be, I honestly believe, and some of your viewers may go, you're full of crap, but no, I honestly believe in my core that he means what he says about what it means to be Canadian. I honestly believe that about him. And I'm prepared to go fight for him and to help make sure he gets reelected. And it's interesting that you guys mentioned that there was a number of people that responded viscerally to my video, because what I've said to a few folks here in the conservative land is, I think maybe you guys are overestimating your support. At the very least, you're overestimating the hatred of Trudeau.
Oh, very much so.
Oh, very much so. I agree with you too. You know, a lot of the comment that we make on the show, a lot of people say, "Oh, he's virtue signaling all the time," and I'm sitting there like, why would you not vote for someone who signals virtue as opposed to what? Now, actual virtue signaling to me is the thing that Pierre Polyev did on the day of remembering the Holodomor,
Mhm.
where he made that video 2 days after he voted against the free trade agreement that Ukraine itself asked for, on the basis that he doesn't want a carbon tax in Ukraine. So he's trying to run the government of Ukraine from the opposition benches. Ukraine, you don't want what you want. I will tell you what you want, which seems to be just a tad imperialist. And considering what's going on in Ukraine right now, imperialism is probably not the approach.
And I thought Mr.
Just
Trudeau's
saying.
response to that was genuine
Mhm.
and sincere, and showed the right amount of pissed offness in a prime ministerial way. I just thought that, and I thought his handling of the bridge situation was very prime ministerial.
Right.
It showed that he had a grasp of the situation, and then Polyev lying to us about when he got that information.
Yes.
Anyway, yeah.
Well,
And the other thing I noticed, sorry to go on that, is we noticed early on, whenever it comes to something having to do with the Constitution, he does not lie. So when he was talking about Quebec at one point, right, that somebody said, "Oh, you think that Quebec is better than?" It's like, no, that's what my father said, and I don't agree with that. When he was talking about this, the Senate reform, we had Harper for 10 years saying, "I unilaterally can change the Senate." A first-year constitutional law student will tell you that that's not possible.
it's not possible.
So he doesn't lie about the Constitution, what it allows and doesn't allow. He doesn't lie about what the law allows and doesn't allow. You might think he's a little sanctimonious. I've heard some people say, "Oh, you really get the feeling that Trudeau just wishes you were a better person," right? Or that he thinks he's a better person than you. Fine, be annoyed with that if you want. But he was the first prime minister to show up at a Pride event.
Mhm.
He's the first prime minister to show up on a drag race program. He will go to where people are. He will go to where people who have less of a voice are. He rolls up his sleeve for flu shots because he made a promise to a mother. He wears funny socks that are made by someone who has Down syndrome.
Mhm.
Now, it's virtue signaling if you don't follow through or you don't mean it. But if you're signaling virtue and you're following through, maybe it's just because you're virtuous. Perhaps.
Yeah.
The flack he took for the socks is beyond anything I can comprehend. I buy socks like that because I think they're cool.
Yeah.
And I
Mhm.
think my students just get a kick out of them. I'm actually looking. I saw a kid the other day. I teach online now, but there's elementary kids within the construct of our online school. That's blended learning. And there's this one kid with these running shoes that when you step, the lights all go on and off.
Mhm. Mhm.
I want to find a pair. I can't find them anywhere online. I got to get a pair of those shoes.
My buddy brought some back from Hong Kong.
Oh, so they're actually adult shoes that
They do make adult sizes. Yeah, they are hard to find. You might be able to find them on the Amazon, but I don't
Okay,
know.
well, that's what I'm gonna do.
He had a company who was manufacturing products in Hong Kong because he wanted to do it here, but he'd never sell the product because the profit margin would have to be razor thin to make it affordable. So he had to manufacture in Hong Kong, and he'd go back and forth to the factory, and he saw these shoes. So he bought a bunch of pairs and brought them back, and people loved them. So he was going to look at importing them, but it never really happened.
Hey, may I tell two quick little stories?
Sure.
Okay, number one, did you guys see the video of Trudeau meeting with the high school kids? And they're all doing the selfies.
No, I didn't see that one. When was this?
It was within the last month.
Okay.
And it was all over TikTok. It's all over Facebook. And so he's and the kids are just giddy. They're just euphoric.
Mhm.
And he's in his, well, of course he's a teacher, right? So he's just in his element.
Yes.
How I cannot, and this isn't, please forgive me, I cannot imagine Polyev doing that on one hand. And on the other, I trusted, no, I'm not even going to say prime minister, I trusted Justin Trudeau in that moment that he loved that.
Oh, yes.
That he was engaged in that. The other thing that I'll tell is that when he first got elected in 2015 in Montreal, I think it was Montreal, where he was at a mall and he shook hands for hours, thanking people for supporting him. Is that acting? Is that dramatic? Is that, you know what? I don't care. Here is the Prime Minister of Canada elect shaking hands with average Canadians and saying, you know what? I really appreciate your vote. To me, I thought, oh man, I got such high hopes for this premiership. That's awesome.
Well, before he got in, I'm going to fully admit, and I've talked about it. I said when he had his boxing match with Senator Patrick Brazeau, who is an MMA fighter, I thought, okay, Brazeau's going to clean his clock, and that smarmy little silver spoon kid is going to get his ass handed to him. And we were all surprised. Like the group that I watched the fight with, were like, I have a whole new respect for this man, and I saw him in a different light. So it's like, maybe
he does the
I
gross
misjudged
grind.
him.
He does the gross grind in under 50 minutes.
Yeah.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah. That's serious. That's
Does it make you a great prime minister? No, but it's, he takes care of himself.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, and you say, would Pierre Poilievre do that with the kids? I go, no, he won't even have an open town hall, Poilievre. It's vetted who gets to speak. Whereas I've seen town halls with the prime minister where he's had some people, make wild accusations and ask him some tough questions and say things that are patently false. And he doesn't run away from it. He doesn't shy away from it. He addresses it head on and talks to these people and engages with them. It was when he sat around the table with, I think it was like a community center, and we watched the video. The audio wasn't the best. And he was talking with a Muslim gentleman about, why it's important that we stand up for the rights of the LGBTQ plus community, and why trans kids should be protected. And he was engaging with these people in a way that I've not seen a politician do before. So it's like the man genuinely is engaged, and he does care, and he wants to do good for this country because he loves this country. And the thing that kills me about this current crop of reformers, because they're not conservatives, they're the Reform Party with a different name, is all it is the way they go on. Well, he was just a drama teacher. Actually, he was a math teacher who taught one semester of drama to fill in for another teacher. But they like to go on and on about that like it's a bad thing. He's a well-rounded individual.
And that's something I want to ask you, actually, the denigration of him as a teacher.
Yeah.
Constantly. You, as a teacher, what bell does that ring?
Well, let me just start my answer with the Saturday Night Live skit from about 2 weeks ago, where someone had a heart attack on the plane and they were asking for a doctor. And they were, no, that career won't work. No, that career won't work. And then, well, I'm a teacher. Maybe I can help. And the whole plane booed and started throwing food at the teacher. And I was I'm a huge SNL fan. I was quite, really, guys?
Yeah.
Really? Is that kind of just Lorne Michaels being silly, or is that like the view of Americans of teachers? It's funny that he made light of the drama teacher, Mr. Poilievre, in the House of Commons, on the floor of the House of Commons, not just at some scrum outside, but on the hallowed ground that Gilbert Perrin brought out to the whole of Canada during those parliament. I've been to the Parliamentary Institute on Teachers Institute on Parliamentary Democracy, greatest Prodi. The hardest working teacher I've ever met is our drama teacher at Vanier, Lori Maisy. She's just incredible. She could run the province.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, the way she runs a musical, the way she runs productions. Teachers, I'm biased, obviously, and at the risk, I'm proud of the profession. It's a vocation. I will not deny that some of my colleagues, very, very few, less than 5%, I would contend, enter the profession for summers off, and about 80% of them don't survive the first 5 years. Teachers such as myself know more about the history of this country and of how this system works than anybody in that House of Commons. I can tell you that right here and now.
Oh, you don't have to twist my arm to convince me of that.
And it was interesting because at the Teachers Institute, the head of the Privy Council told us, when I asked the question, what do I say to my students about their impact on how a bill becomes a law? He essentially said there is none. And I said, really? So when I go back to my classroom, how do I phrase that? And we had a bit of a discussion about that. I met Jean-Pierre. Was it Jean-Pierre Kingsley, who was the chief electoral officer? Yeah.
Yes.
I met with him, and he was opposed to my idea of lowering the voter age to 16. He said they're not mature enough. And I said, so there are 60-year-old people that are mature enough to vote? But anyway, teachers, how is it any different than a lawyer? How is it any different than, frankly, I think that a forestry worker could be a good prime minister or a good politician. Why? Why do we have to make leadership all about titles and the wealth you have or who you're connected to? I remember I quote Robert Kennedy a lot, and in his speech to the students at Cape Town in 1966, the Tiny Ripple of Hope speech, he said, how many of your African generation has been lost to apartheid? How many of the Irish that came to the United States were lost? How many of those voices that could have cured cancer, that could have ended apartheid, that could have negotiated treaties, that could have done any one of 1,000 things, but because they were Black, because they were Irish, they were silenced instantaneously. I fundamentally believe that any Canadian citizen that wants it bad enough and is committed to the country will make an effective politician. In fact, Barack Obama said, and it's one of my quotes that I hang my hat on, the most important office, and it gets me emotional thinking about it. Sorry.
No, it's okay. We welcome it.
The most important office in a democracy is the office of citizen. The citizen is the most important office, and that democracy rests on the back of the citizen, not the president. And so Trump can be defeated if there is enough groundswell. So long-winded, because I could go on for hours, but long-winded, I'm offended that he made light of Mr. Trudeau's previous avocation. I also think it's a joke, given that what has he done other than be an elected official? Nothing. Really? You're an elected official. What experience do you bring to the table? You know,
zero.
Khalil Gibran wrote, the greatest souls amongst us are seared with scars, meaning those with the most experience, those that have stories to tell are the ones that we go to. The best counselors are the ones who've gone through it, right? You know, I mean,
right.
The recovery centers in our community have people who've been through recovery.
Yes.
They're there for a reason. So I think that Mr. Trudeau, as a teacher, is a good choice.
Well, and you know, you think about how the Conservatives, the Reform Party, I call them the Reformicons, how they always go on about, we're here for the workers, we're here for the workers, the workers, the workers, the workers, which is not true at all. Because the recent strike we had in the ports in British Columbia, they went to Seamus O'Regan and said, are you going to table back to work legislation? He's like, absolutely not. We're negotiating. We're not forcing anybody back to work. That's not how you negotiate. Unions are there to give power to workers. Then they go, well, we're really here. We're going to give you a more powerful paycheck by stripping all the social programs that you pay taxes into, our social safety net, that will privatize our healthcare system. I could go on for hours about this, and sometimes I do.
But this is what I say to people is like, okay, you're going to have more money in your pocket if Pierre Poilievre gets elected prime minister. Guess what, though? You're going to have less social services.
How much is going to go out of your pocket?
Out of your pocket. Like the government, let's just say the government of Canada has $100 to run the economy, to run the country. You cannot go beyond $100. If you're going to cut somewhere, right? If you're going to take in less revenue, you're going to have less money to spend on the services that this country requires. And we as a society have made that decision. It was a collective, communal decision to have a societal social safety net.
Yes,
that was something. What's his name? Mackenzie King did not want to create the social safety net, but he determined the mood of the country wanted to go in that direction, and he went that way. That's why he was prime minister for 22 years.
Yes.
Canadians made a conscious choice.
Well, we need to take care of one another in times of need, in difficult times. And, you know, I mean, I was going somewhere a minute ago with how they talk about, the conservatives talk about how they're for jobs for the worker, for this and that, and yet there's a member of is it the NDP or Liberal Party, Mr. Beaver, in Edmonton, who was a bus driver.
It's the mayor of Edmonton now.
The mayor of Edmonton, yes,
He
but
was
wasn't
in cabinet.
He was in
Like,
cabinet, yes. And
Mr.
they
Slay.
like to make fun of him all the time for being just a bus driver. But you're for the worker. No, they hate the average Canadian. They don't like us, and they
It's
will
utter
rob us
contempt.
of everything. Literally.
Absolutely. And look at what they said about AOC, just
Yeah.
the bartender. And now she's one
just
of the
the
most
bartender.
powerful members of Congress.
Yeah.
She could conceivably run for president.
Is she old enough yet? I think you need to be 42 to run for president.
Is it? I thought it was 35.
35.
Is it 35? I thought it was
I think it's
42. Yeah,
35.
you know, either way. Either way. It's Katie Porter, who I love as well. Every time she brings out her whiteboard.
She is amazing.
And she was a teacher. And I remember she had somebody on, she was doing a cross-examination of somebody in Congress. And they quoted a line from a book. She goes, "Yeah, I know the book. I wrote it." It was a book on economics that she wrote. And they quoted something. She goes, "Yeah, I know that book. Well, I actually wrote it."
Yeah, I saw that too. Hey, do you guys ever hear of Jeff Jackson from South Carolina?
No.
Oh, he's got 2 million followers on TikTok. He's an incredible congressman from that state. I'm pretty sure it's South Carolina. Well, they realigned his district, so now he's out.
Oh.
So, so the Republicans realigned the district. Well, now he's going to run for attorney general of his state. And he said, "You just wait." Check this guy out. He's amazing. He's up there with Katie Porter.
North Carolina. I just looked it up there.
Is it North Carolina?
North
Okay.
Carolina,
I
yeah.
knew it was one of the Carolinas.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you, because you're a teacher, and you said a lot of things there that actually, because the theme of our show is democracy, is something that you do. So when you were saying, the most important office is the office of citizen, I was like, yes, we are. One of the things that we try to do with our show is bring commentary. Of course, we have a little bit of a cheeky and demeanor, and we're maybe a little irreverent at times, but we do want to be facts first. We don't want to engage in sophistry. We want to use proper argumentation. Big fan of Aristotle, all the laws of fallacy and all that kind of stuff. But we try to bring some media literacy, some political literacy, and some civics. And I was wondering if you can tell us about what is the state of civics education at the moment in our schools.
Okay. I can only tell you my experience with the colleagues I work with.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I would give it a 10 out of 10.
All right.
Now, that's not to say that there aren't social studies teachers across the province of British Columbia that are doing 5 months of World War II.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Okay. That's one of the essential reasons why they brought in provincial exams, was to ensure that teachers were covering the entire curricula. Social Studies 10, where we teach civics to every kid. You do get civics in other areas, but where every student has access to that information, is the Social Studies 10 curriculum. We talk about everything. We talk about party platforms, the election process, how bills become law, things that a premier considers when appointing a cabinet. We run the whole gamut. We talk about, I talk about moral responsibility to be engaged in your community, that you, by your birthright, your citizenship, I quote the ancient Greeks, where yes, their definition of citizen was very narrow,
Mm-hmm.
but the expectations of citizen for their citizens was that it was mandatory engagement.
Mm-hmm.
If you did not engage in the life of the city-state, you could be expelled for 10 years through a process called ostracism. I tell my students that if you are jaded or cynical about the political process, that's a fair position to hold. But think about political involvement in other ways, like coaching community soccer, joining
Mm-hmm.
community theaters, getting involved in the community choir. don't throw garbage out your window, pay your taxes, raise your children to be respectful and loving of their peers. There's all kinds of things that contribute to the greater good of our community, and not just voting on a ballot or running for public office, that you can enrich society by just your engagement in it. Getting off the couch, getting out of your house, and realizing that there's more to the world than the 6 feet that revolves around you. And that isn't just teenagers. That's people in their 70s, 80s, 90s, 40s, 50s. We got to realize that the impact that we have is beyond us. It's negative and positive, right? So we have to remember that. Now, in terms of, I think at the school I was at, we did a bang up job. We met regularly. We used to run, not used to, they still do, run when there's elections, both provincial, municipal, and federal, we ran them with the actual candidates on the ballots, and the students voted. And we could pass that information on to Elections BC, Elections Canada, because they were the ones that gave us all the information. We talk about those elections in the school. We bring elected officials into our school. We run Terry Fox runs every year, and our school has raised almost 150 grand since 1999, which isn't as much as some of the private schools, but it's not bad for a working class school in the Comox Valley. We fundraise for the developing world. We used to do Christmas hamper drives, where we bring in as many as 50 hampers and we fill them as a school. We teach our students that to give to the community, to engage the community, is their responsibility. And that they just can't leave it to someone else, because you can't depend on that. You have to get involved, and you have to remember that. And it's funny because even some of our students that come from some families that could use the hampers, we're giving to the hampers.
Yes. It's getting engaged at a young age is a very good thing. And as one of my passions, as Mr. Beaver can attest, is that people need to learn civics in this country. And I get upset at people who, they have very loud voices, but they don't know what they're talking about. And the problem is they will get people following them who believe them when they have no facts to back up their argument. We're going to drive across the country and camp out in Ottawa for 3 weeks because we don't have freedom. What? What? And why did you come to Ottawa? We don't like the lockdowns or the mandates. Then go to your MPP or MLA, go to your legislature or your provincial parliament, because all of the shutdowns, the business shutdowns, all of the vaccine mandates, with the exception of federal government and federal employees, it was all done at a provincial level. So why did you come to Ottawa? You were in the wrong city protesting the wrong person. You did it because you don't like Justin Trudeau, but you screamed about how you don't have freedom. It drove unencumbered across the country. Our education system, in that respect, we failed a lot of people.
Well, I'll be brutally honest. I'll teach what responsible government is, or I'll teach what a prime minister must consider. And then the same students I had in Soj 10 will come into my comparative cultures class, and I'll ask the question, what's responsible government? What must the prime minister consider?
Yeah.
But one thing I can assure you, Beaver and Grizzly, is that all those kids in my class, they know they have a responsibility. Whether they know the name of various policies and things, they know that they go vote. That's it. Pure and simple. I really, 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 really push the vote. And I said, look, the one time I couldn't vote for a single candidate, I spoiled the ballot. And when I looked in the Times Colonist the next morning, there it was. I was one of 12 spoiled ballots.
Wow.
I made the effort to go in.
You went, yeah.
Yeah.
Spoiling a ballot is better than not voting, because you're still getting your voice is being utilized. I know sometimes it's like, oh God, I'll just hope,
I remember one year I voted for many different parties throughout my life. And I remember there was one year where I was just unimpressed with everyone. It was the year that we had the Natural Law Party. And I'm sitting there, I'm thinking, if all it really takes is entering through another door and we hire 40,000 flying yogis, which creates employment, and more yoga creates more health. You know what? You get my vote this year because more jobs, more health, and at least, who knows? It might work as opposed to like you giving to someone. But it was clearly a protest vote, but it was just like I didn't want to spoil the ballot. I did want to support someone, but it was just
I
like,
know. I was
but
19 at the time.
Right.
no, but I was sitting there. I was thinking like, you know what? What's the worst that can happen? We
Yeah.
enter through another door, more people do yoga, and we create 40,000 jobs.
Correct.
Okay, I could be down with that if that's all we're going to do in 4 years. Fine, but none of that is bad.
Well, we
it may not be enough, but it's not bad.
a week or so, was it 2 weeks ago? When did we interview Ted? He's
On the 22nd, so about 5 days ago.
about 5 days ago. So we interviewed Ted Sue, which is he is a running for provincial Liberal provincial party leader
In Ontario.
here in the province of Ontario. And one of the things he said to us was we had a good back and forth, and for the most part, I agreed with. We saw eye to eye on most things, right? Some of his policies were like, let's get regional minimum wages, because if you live downtown Toronto, $16 an hour is not going to cover anything.
Mhm.
But if you're living in Sudbury, you're probably doing pretty good. So we need to adjust minimum wages for regional, because a one size fits all just doesn't simply work. So that I was in complete agreement with. But the thing that he added in that he suggested, and I'm like, oh, I like that, because we don't have that, is the ability to recall. So you know how they did that in California? They recalled the governor, and they had a new election because they're like, this guy isn't working out. We're stuck with Doug Ford here for 3 more years. And I don't know if the province can handle it, because he's selling off everything.
I know.
And
I know.
having the ability to recall that and go, hang on a second, we know we elected you, but let's
In Alberta,
have a do-over.
I just saw in the news today, but I think it was an article from the 20th, that a company that wanted to come in and do that mining right in that pristine area where they were just going to take some like rock off and just do it. And everybody said no.
Mhm.
Well, they're trying again now
Yes.
that they got another 3.5 years with Danielle, who's clearly very open to having it happen. So the project that was allegedly dead, not dead. Zombie project. It's back. Let's try again. No didn't mean no. It meant
It's
just
like
try
in
harder.
Ohio. It's like in Ohio, where 56% voted to
Yes.
constitutionalize abortion rights for women.
And then they tried to change
And
it.
now they're trying an end run to take the power away from the courts in that state.
And they tried it before too, because before they had that, they held a special referendum and they tried to raise the threshold for the vote to 60 for all ballot measures. So they're basically telling everybody, hey, Ohioans, even though you live in a democracy and it's 50%, how about we change that? If ever you want anything done for yourselves that you start yourself, we now make it 60.
And how does Vivek have a youth group if he's raising the voting age to 25? It my mind. Like, oh, he's such a smart. He's an AI candidate, isn't he?
Yep. I you know what? I'm not a big fan of any of those candidates, but I think it was when Nikki Haley says you talk like you sound like your chat GPT. Points.
Yeah.
Right. Put one in her column, because that was really true.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you as well, because you had touched upon it, and we recently interviewed someone of high school age, and we asked her, but I wanted to ask you, because of everything that's going on with those who are not quite sure what the curriculum is when it comes to sex education and transgender children and pronouns and all that kind of stuff. We see the premier of Saskatchewan actually blows my mind, invoking the notwithstanding clause, basically throwing the full weight of the state against children.
Yeah.
Who simply want the respect of being referred to as they choose.
Correct.
That blows my mind.
Yeah.
Could you inform our listeners what does the curriculum say in BC? What do you teach when it comes to alternative lifestyles, let's say?
Well, I can tell you, I don't have enough time to convert some of my students to being gay or trans. I don't have the time for that.
I heard one teacher say, I can't even convince them to wear deodorant. Like, come on, man.
You know, I gotta say, I was a little worried about David Eby as premier when he came in, but I think the man is actually doing a pretty good job, to be honest. And that's anyway. Let me start by saying this. I know of for a fact, in my last year at Vanier, 2 students said to me they had no place to live. Why? Because I came out as trans to my family and they kicked me out. Mm-hmm. We desperately need to, if it's 12 and under, that may be a different debate, but this idea that a child goes to the counselor at our school and says, may I be referred to this way? Please don't refer to me as that other pronoun of my birth with the emails home, because I may not be able to have a place to live. We're not hiding things. We are under the rule of law in loco parentis, and we are supposed to protect the child. We can't, there's a form called FOIPA, and I forget what the acronym stands for, but the basic gist of it is a parent can say yay or nay to the child being in the yearbook, on the webpage of the school, on and on it goes, because there's some children that if the other parent finds out where they are, could be kidnapped. Or whatever. Like, we have to do whatever we can to protect children in the school. It's not promoting of a lifestyle. What it promotes is that we're all in this together. We're all equal. And that this child who's trans, this child who's gay, this child who's Irish, this child who's 12, this child who cheers for Notre Dame, I don't care. They are equal and they are welcome in this school. We celebrate diversity. And what Mr. Polyev and others have done is they've made it about parents' rights, which I think is ridiculous.
But not all parents.
Sorry?
Not all parents. The parents that are okay with the curriculum as it is, the parents that are okay with their child, their rights are not. It's not about every parent's rights. No. It's only about some.
Correct. Absolutely. And isn't it interesting? Right? That those parents have no problem with their child getting this celebration of diversity, because they probably had the conversation with their child.
Yeah. It's what you say that
hold on for a second. I just wanted to complete that. FOIPA is the Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act.
Thank you.
There you go. Okay, Mr. Grizzly.
It was, when you tell me that you had 2 students that came out as trans to their parents and they got booted out of the house, and it's like,
but that's what we've been saying on the show. 40% of street youth are rainbow.
Yes. It's because their parents will not accept them for who they are. And I'm like, what, you don't love your own child? I mean, if you truly love your own child, you're going to accept them for who they are. You might not agree with it and you might be confused by it, but if you love your child, maybe learn about what it is they're going through. Maybe try and accept them for who they are. And I've been lucky. I'm cis, het, white, 55, physically fit. It's come on, I'm at the top of the white privilege pyramid. I know that. My parents are still married. They're still blissfully happy with one another. I had it pretty easy when it comes to that, and I get it. But it's like a kid who is, if you're struggling with your sexual identity, whether it's you realize you're gay, or maybe you're bi, or you're trans, whatever that is. I can't understand any of that because it wasn't my lived experience. But I'm going to make a place for anybody who's going through that, because I cannot begin to comprehend the inner turmoil one must face, especially if you come from a household where admitting that is going to put you out on the street. So the inner turmoil that child must face to come to terms with that to themselves, and then tell their parents that, and then they find themselves out on the street. It's like,
or alternatively, they come to terms with it, and now they have to deal with the double life.
Yes.
Yeah. They're laying, so they're always lying to someone at some point.
Which is no way to live.
or
Beaver,
or if not lying, just not being their authentic selves, not allowed to be their authentic selves.
I have to confess to not knowing explicitly what the acronym SOGI stands for. Could you look that up for real quick?
Oh, absolutely.
Because our superintendent, our union president, our CUPE union president, the three partners in our district sent a letter to families, to our whole community, that our trans and gay children are of value, and that SOGI isn't about teaching lifestyles. It's about teaching that people have other lifestyles.
Mm-hmm.
And that we need, correct.
Sexual orientation and gender identity.
Thank you. And that we as a district, it's incumbent upon us here in this district to make sure that all students feel safe in this district. So, you know, the movie Mean Girls, those kind of girls, those kind of boys never have real problems in the school. Okay, I shouldn't say that, because bullying goes for even that came out wrong.
Yes.
But the marginalization of trans and gay kids has been notorious in our society for hundreds of years.
And we've made some progress on those files. I don't know what else to say, but we've made progress in the last number of years, but we've suddenly got this backslide in just the last couple, and largely pushed by the Freedom Convoy, who think their freedom is okay, but if they take it away from you, that's okay too, which is very confusing to me. But we're not dealing with rocket surgeons here to begin with.
Well,
and I know that's unkind, but I mean, really, you know.
Well, the leader of the opposition said Trudeau should butt out of Parents' Rights. My response to that was, here's his quotation. This is what the Prime Minister of Canada said. He said, "Let me hear the government of Canada. Canada is telling you that you are equal, you're valid, and you're valued. How can that possibly be criticized by the leader? Why would the leader of the opposition not join in solidarity with the Prime Minister of Canada and Mr. Singh and the leader of the Bloc and the Green Party to say, as a society, you are valued and equal?"
Yes.
But no, he has to create this fear, this mongering, and it, to his credit, it works. It whips up that fan base.
Yeah.
And how do you debate it? Oh my God. I've been called all kinds of things on TikTok because I came out in favor of SOGI. I had video of the rally that I went to. And is this the kind of crap you teach in schools? And I said, yeah, actually it is. Yeah. We celebrate diversity in our schools.
Well, it's wow.
Yeah.
When Polyev goes on his rant, and he did this not too long ago when he was on stage, and he said Justin Trudeau is teaching radical gender ideology. That is coded language, which was used against women at one point in time, and then it was used against the gay community, and now he's going after the trans community. And the radical gender ideology is not really a thing. They're just teaching people that some people are different than you.
Correct.
And I'm sorry, but how is that radical? That's a fact. And if you want to live in a society, you're going to be running across people who are different than you. So why don't we make space for them? Because they exist and they'd like to be able to live their lives authentically as who they are. I don't need to understand it. I don't have to understand. Like, somebody talked to me about what being non-binary is, and I still don't fully grasp it. I don't need to. I just need to make sure you have a place here in society where you can be that person, because you're not harming anybody. And if you're not harming anybody, come to the table. Let's break bread together. If you're harming somebody, then I got a problem with you.
The state has no place in the bedrooms of the nation.
Mm-hmm. Indeed.
Justice Minister Pierre Elliott Trudeau.
Yeah.
Indeed. I was wondering, to get back to the initial subject.
Yes, sir.
How would I put this? How do people who do not like what is going on at this moment, they don't like the vitriol, they don't like the venom, they certainly don't like the violence, and the violence doesn't have to be physical. The violence is in the rhetoric. I
Stochastic
really have a
terrorism.
problem. The problem I have with the Conservative Party and the PPC Party is the outward show of utter contempt for about 2/3 of us, and they are gleeful about it. They are happy to be contemptuous about. It's almost like the rallying cry is vote for me because I hate the same people you hate, and I will make them pay, or I will make their lives harder or miserable.
Yeah.
So when for people who are voting, because we always try to ask them to not vote only for themselves.
Vote for the person who's going to do the most work for your community, your friends, your neighbors,
No,
your
no,
next door neighbor.
in that sense. But I have my issues when I go to vote, my issues that are dear to me. Because I have a house. Interest rates are high. Do I want to vote for the party that's going to give me better interest rates on my house if they are going to persecute my trans cousin and not bring drinking water to my Indigenous friends who live on reserve?
Mm-hmm.
So, do you have counsel for people who are trying to sift through that and figure it out, how to cast a vote that's for more than just yourself?
That's a huge question.
Yeah, it is.
I think that any leader that can tell the Canadian people or the constituent, I get it. My house interest rates are going up too.
Mhm.
I mean, no member of parliament is exempt from the interest rates. What I would say, my father, who he's a fundamentalist Catholic. If you're not pro-life, you don't get his vote. You could be on his policy board on every issue, 99 out of 100, but if you're not pro-life, you don't get his vote. I don't get that way of thinking. In the way I view it is that let's make this real simple. Justin Trudeau, maybe Mr. Singh, but Mr. Trudeau has probably the greater chance of defeating Poilievre. Mr. Trudeau, in my view, is your best bet as a vote. And even though you don't vote directly for Trudeau, we know that only his constituents do, but you can vote for the Liberal or you can vote for the NDP and you're riding to cancel out the Conservative. I don't know, but he is the one leader who is an inclusive leader.
Mm-hmm.
He is the antithesis of Hitler and Trump, the complete 180.
Mm-hmm.
And for those that vote for Trump and that party of exclusion and the party of no, I encourage my fellow Canadians to look at the big picture, because I believe fundamentally that a leader, a man or a woman that is an inclusive in leadership, will work their way to try and find, let's limit the inflation rates. Let's limit your interest rates on your properties, because that's what's in the interest of Canadians. I don't believe Mr. Poilievre or Maxime Bernier when they say that they are in the interest of Canadians, because they're not demonstrating that. When Mr. Trudeau says we are a party or we are a government of inclusion, I take that to mean that he's going to take that to all other policies,
Mm-hmm.
that he be the most open to finding solutions to those policies. I find that I would vote for the party that has the largest tent. I've been accused as a Liberal of sitting on the fence and going down the middle of the road. And okay, fair enough. But I'm willing to listen to the right. I'm willing to listen to the left. And the people on the far right aren't willing to listen to anything else. And on the far left, to anything else. My God, I mean, Paul Martin used Reform Party policies in the 1990s, and Pierre Trudeau used David Lewis's policies in the early 1970s. The Liberals have this way.
Justin Trudeau's using some of Stephen Harper's policies.
Yes.
Yes.
In
You
London,
know?
2009, he was talking about carbon tax and that the carbon tax would be like $65 a ton by 2019. We're in 2023. What's the carbon tax? $65 a ton.
I just find that as a federal liberal, some of your listeners go, yeah, you're full of it. But in my view, the teaching of history, the history shows of the 114 of the 160 odd years the liberals have been in power. Why? Because they've been able to see the wider picture. They can look holistically, whereas it's very clear Mr. Polyev is looking at it from a very narrow tunnel.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That would be my words to your audience, to your listeners, about if they're stumped, try and look at the bigger picture regardless of what's going on in the own home. Now, here's the other thing. I haven't had a steak in 3 weeks, and I don't see having another one for a while because I'm buying pork and chicken. It's just cheaper.
No, I get you.
Same here.
And I'm not going to take a trip to Mexico. I'm going to get a golf membership instead. It's cheaper. I enjoy it. And I can't, I mean, I could maybe make it work, but I mean, I think in our society, I think we need to just accept that there's certain realities that we have it pretty good in this country.
Yeah.
And there are Canadians that, what's the figure? You guys would know more than me. I think it's 50% of Canadians are one paycheck away from being homeless.
I think it's a little higher than that, but yeah.
Yeah. And so the video I made tonight, one of the videos I made tonight is my heart aches. I do a quote a day often. And the quote was, you don't, oh God, good things don't happen. You make them happen. And I said, my heart aches for people that live in war zones, death camps. Like there's just some people behind the eight ball. But I argued that if we have faith, if we work hard to make our little corner of the world a better place, I still believe karmically it permeates itself. Have you guys ever heard of the book, The 100th Monkey?
No.
It's an anthropological study that studied chimpanzees in an archipelago in the South Pacific, and they threw bananas peeled onto the beaches of these 1,000 islands, and the monkeys were for weeks just eating the bananas peeled and just the grit. Finally, one day, a monkey went to the water source, cleaned the banana, recognized it was salty, and then, it is taking the sand off, found a freshwater source on the island, cleaned it and ate it. And within a week, every monkey on all of the islands within that archipelago were cleaning their bananas. Coincidence? Karma was the argument by these scientists, these anthropologists.
Karma.
So I think if we work hard here in Canada to make this a better place, to work with our Indigenous brothers and sisters, to get them water, clean running water, to be engaged with those that are in the prison system and rehabilitate, as opposed to constant, you're a bad person.
Yes.
I know I sound idealistic and naive, but you know what? I think we need a little bit of that.
Well, it certainly couldn't hurt, and you're right. This lock them up and throw away the key mentality that the Harper conservatives had has been proven time and time again to not work. It creates bigger and more hardened criminals. Now, Canada has one of the lowest rates of recidivism in the G20, if you will. But we still have ways to go. I mean, we could be doing like a Norwegian or a Scandinavian model. Norway, Finland, Denmark, Sweden, they are actually rehabilitative prisons.
Those are extraordinary.
They really are.
Oh my God.
They really are. Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, you've got people in those prisons who are hardened criminals who come out with a skill set or a trade or something so that they can become a productive member of society.
Guess what, Grizzly? It costs money, doesn't it? And that's what the conservatives want. They want to cut. And it's like, if you invest, you're going to see reduced crime. You're going to see insurance rates go down. You're going to see a lot of benefit to your society if you invest in people.
Mhm.
Well, a friend of mine he's in his 70s, and he's been a lifelong progressive conservative, and he has said, as many people I'm sure you've heard, said that the party that I was a member of and supported for decades doesn't exist anymore. And he started to vote NDP just because he's like, I can't vote for this current crop of conservatives. But he has said oftentimes, let's like, he doesn't believe in the death penalty because he realizes, I tried to appeal it to him from the financial standpoint of, if we had a death penalty in this country, which we don't, thank goodness, because we're a civilized society, but a death penalty actually ends up costing us more. It costs us more money for the state to murder somebody, for want of a better term, than it does to house them in prison for 75 years. And
Absolutely.
he's like, oh no, I know, because of the appeals process. You have unlimited number of appeals in this country. You have the faint hope clause, and who pays for all of that? Well, because they're a prisoner, they don't have money to pay for a lawyer, so we pay for it.
Yeah.
So I appealed to some progressive conservatives about why we don't need a death penalty, because it's actually less costly to not have it. So I appealed to them from a fiscal standpoint, and then once you can start to sort of see eye to eye on little things like that, you can open up the dialogue a little bit more and talk about how, let's give each other a hand up. And I don't think giving, there, and that being said, this same gentleman that I had this conversation with, he said there are people that do need a handout. He says that there's a vast, large swath of society that needs a hand up. We're going to give you help, but you need to put a little bit of effort into it. But he also is fully realizing that there is a percentage of society that is unemployable, period, for whatever reason. And he says, and we have to take care of those people too. So, he and
Because
I,
if we don't, it'll cost us more.
even more in the long run.
Yeah.
He and I walked, I'm more left and he's a little bit more, but we're so close to the center, like the vast majority of Canadians. All of a sudden, this extreme right wing and extreme left wing. I don't like extremes on either side because it only harms society. And those of us, well, I'm not a marginalized member of society, but those of us in society who are on the margins just get pushed further and further away by that type of rhetoric. And, it worries me that for so long, Pierre Poilievre has been able to get away with his lies. And it drives me out of my mind. But he's not getting away with it anymore in the last couple of days. He's not getting away with it.
Isn't it funny how one heckler caused him more stress than the violence that Mr. Trudeau had to endure?
Right.
Mr. Trudeau smiles at these people, and he doesn't yell and scream at them. I don't know how he does it. I'd be losing my mind if I was walking. I'd be like, fuck off.
Yeah, no, that's exactly what I would do, And anybody who knows me knows I would.
Back to your comment about handout, James Carville. I forget if the book's called "We're Right, They're Wrong," or no, "We're Right, They're Wrong," or "They're Wrong, We're Right." I can't. It's one of the two. Mm-hmm. He had a grandma, a Democrat grandma, that said, "It's not a handout; it's a help up."
Yes.
And she saw democracy as a ladder. And you got to get a person onto that first rung. And once they get on that first rung, then they have a choice. Then they can, but we got to get them on that first rung of that ladder. Otherwise, where the hell are we going?
Mm-hmm.
And that to me, yeah.
It's we're right to their wrong.
There we go.
One last
You're
question.
good.
Thanks. When I started university 1 year, I didn't like what I was studying and I dropped out. I wanted to transfer to something else and they wouldn't let me, so I dropped out. So I actually went to take a medical office assistance class so I wouldn't lose my year. And I learned how to type about 75 words per minute. I never actually worked in the field because I would be the next year like this, but the typing skills really helped. So
they stick around.
I wanted to ask one last question before we go.
Sure.
Because you teach history. We have the federal conservatives trying to basically convince us that we have never had it worse than we do now. I like that you're laughing.
Wasn't it Poilievre that said, "Congrats, Canada, on being in one of the top 3 countries"? it was this summer or something where we got top 3. I don't know. And it was like, Mr. Polyev, how can we be worse off than ever?
Yeah.
And then we're in the top 3.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I shouldn't have butted in.
No,
it's fine.
not at all. Not at all. That was a genuine reaction. As a history teacher.
Okay.
He's saying Trudeau says you've never had it better, but he's trying to convince us we've never had it worse. Where are we?
Jed Bartlett on West Wing said, I'll ask 10 economists about anything, and 5 will say we're doomed, and the other 5 will say we're doing great. My answer to that would be, I think we're doing quite well. I think we're doing better than we think.
Mm-hmm.
I think that in the history of this country, our engagement with the world, it was funny watching conservatives post videos of Trudeau being ignored, and yet mainstream media is showing images of Trudeau at conferences and summits, connecting and engaging with the participants of other countries, and Policiero of Brazil or whatever, the Brazilian leader who in one video had his back to Trudeau, and when Trudeau touched him on the arm, refused to turn around. Well, he's totally having a great time with Trudeau in this video that I've seen. No, I think that we are impacted by the world. We are not alone. Woodrow Wilson said we can no longer maintain isolation. Neutrality is not going to work for us anymore. It's not going to be cost for us, and that we are of the world. And so this WEF and all that stuff, I mean, did they forget that Harper put us into that deal with China for 31 years?
Oh, they like that. They don't say China. They always say Beijing. Have you noticed that? Pierre Poilievre says we need to look into this Beijing interference. Will not say the word China. Not a single conservative will say the name of the country. They always refer to the city in China.
Yeah.
That's telling.
All I know is that I can go online, I can go to a town square, I can meet with my MP, I can meet with my MLA, I can say whatever the heck I want, and only TikTok censors it. The grocery stores are full. Yes, the amount of groceries, the way I buy groceries does get adjusted, but we have access to food. We have access to clean running water. We can do better with our Indigenous brothers and sisters. We are one of the freest nations on earth. We are one of the wealthiest nations on earth. We are short-staffed. We need workers. Where is this unemployment crap? This is an amazing country, and I think we sold ourselves short in 1959 when we shut down the Avro Arrow.
Yeah,
that was both the example of our greatness and of our greatest failing. And Canadians do this to ourselves all the time. Oh, we're not that great. No, we are a great country. We have accomplished amazing things.
Yes.
What this tiny country did in the First and Second World War is unparalleled. And if you look at it as a per capita thing, America, we couldn't have won that war without them. But tell you what, for the size of our population and what we contributed to those two wars, unfathomable the contributions of our nation. We are a respected nation on this planet, and that our passport was voted top 3. It was the 3rd. I think Japan was number 1, and I forget what the second one was. Canada's passport is number 3 on earth. It is a admired passport, will get you in almost everywhere.
But somebody complained that there's a rainbow in it now.
Oh, and that will
it's not
be
a rainbow.
Huge.
It's not even a rainbow, though.
When they redo passports.
Yeah.
Vinnie Ridge, as much as I got Vinnie Ridge tattooed on my left calf, Vinnie Ridge can't be on the passport in perpetuity. I know. Right? And so what? We've never recognized gay people as a nation. We finally apologized to gay people. I'm sure our listeners know that we were imprisoning gay people until 1964 or 66. He was in jail till 72.
Yeah.
I was born in 1968.
This
was in my life.
For something he didn't do.
Yeah.
falsely accused. They discovered that he wasn't guilty of the crime and yet imprisoned him because of the criminal code said he was gay.
Yeah, because he confessed to that during the investigation had nothing to do with
I
his
apologize
sexuality.
to his memory and to his family. I know his name. It's on the top of my head. I'm sure, Beaver, you'll have it in a second.
Yeah,
anyway.
I know. I can't think of his name right now either. And this is not ancient history. Yeah, I was born in 1968. He was in prison for 4 years after I was born.
George Everett Clippert.
There you go.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
We have a great country, and we can be incredibly proud of this country. What ends up happening is that we let other people define Trudeau, and then therefore that definition of Trudeau defines Canada, and that's bullshit. That is an unfair thing to Trudeau, and it's unfair to us as Canadians. And I was thinking, I'll finish with this. I was going through the McDonald's drive-thru. I do it occasionally, and I was getting breakfast on my way down to Victoria to visit my mom, and I just had this sense of the guy that took my money and the people that gave me my food. They were laughing. Good morning, sir. Here they are doing this job that isn't respected by some members of our society, and they're doing it, and they made me feel special going through that stupid little drive-through. And they're Canadians. They're Canadians that are contributing to this country.
Yes.
And they're paying taxes, and we have health care because of those Canadians. I just think it's amazing. We're a great country. Don't sell this country short, my fellow Canadians out there.
No. Hey, look, we're not perfect. We know that. But what was it Pierre Trudeau said? Canada's a dream. Don't let the dream die. We have to continue to work towards making it better all the time. Some days it's little baby steps, small increments, and other days it's big pieces of legislation. But we're always working towards making the place better. As long as we don't elect somebody like Pierre Poilievre.
Well, I've always said that this country, particularly over the last 50 years, has admitted its wrongs, has admitted its failings, and has taken steps, maybe not as fast as some people would like, but has moved towards, like, would you ever think of truth and reconciliation in the United States? It's unfathomable. Yeah. Didn't they just vote in Australia not to constitutionalize Indigenous rights?
They asked citizens to vote on whether or not other people should have rights.
Correct.
That blew my mind to begin with.
Wasn't it 68% no, or was it 58%? Yeah. It was
pretty high.
Number. Yeah, it was a high number. It blew me away. But anyway, we have a great country.
We do. We are very lucky to live here. I know so many people that come here and make this their home, and I meet people all the time who, as Uber drivers and people delivering food and stuff like that. People who are getting whatever work they can and working their butts off. And I remember one day, a colleague and I, we were on our way to a job site because I worked in construction for many, many years. We were on our way to a job site, and I said, "Take a look at the car right beside us." He goes, "Yeah." I go, "You see that Somali woman in her wearing her hijab in a brand new minivan?" I go, "She came here in 1990 as a refugee, and she made a life for herself. She's made a life. She's made a home. She's made a life. She's raising her children here. She didn't have that opportunity in her own country. She came here to have the freedom to be who she wants to be. Whether she chooses to worship to whatever God is, that's between her and her God. It doesn't matter to me. You have the right to do that." And he kind of looked and he goes, "I never thought about it that way." I go, "I guarantee you, her spouse, and their kids work 10 times harder than you and I ever will. Yeah. Because they know how lucky they are to be here." And it kind of changed his perspective on things, because he was a little bit of a, I don't want to use any derogatory terms here, but he was not the most open-minded of individuals, we'll say. But that day, it changed his perspective on things, and he's a different person now. And I'm not saying I had anything to do with it. I just pointed out one thing to him, and I think that opened the doors for him. And he is a better person today because he let go of the anger that he had that was unfounded anger, because some political hack somewhere told him he should be angry about that person over there is going to try and take your cookie. You know that political cartoon?
Absolutely.
You know which one? blue collar worker with 2 cookies. There's a refugee with nothing, and then there's a guy with a mound of cookies. Careful, that fellow over there is going to try and take your cookie.
Absolutely.
You know,
Yeah.
he doesn't believe in that anymore because he realizes that people come here for the same reasons that we live here. It's just to try and get through our lives and live the best lives we can, and enjoy life. And we have the capability and ability to do that here because of the sacrifices and efforts put forth by politicians and soldiers and members of the community that you live in today, who put their lives and put their money where their mouth is. You talk about Vimy. My grandfather fought there.
Yeah.
I knew my
grandfather fought there.
Yeah, I knew my grandfather. He died in 1996. He was 99 years old. I knew him. I knew him well. So I got, I have a direct connection to that. That not a lot of people do. But anyway, I'm starting to wander because I'm getting tired.
Yeah.
Franklin Roosevelt said, "The only thing we have to fear is fear itself."
Mm.
And you know what he did? He spent the 30s on the radio talking to Americans, and it made them feel better.
Fireplace chats.
Fireplace chats.
Indeed. And hopefully the kits and cubs will have loved this chat, hopefully by their fireplace.
Cheers.
What I did there. Oh, by the way, it was 60%.
It was
wow.
Voted against. I know.
Wow.
Mind blowing. Tim, thank you so very much for this.
Thank you.
So refreshing.
Oh yeah.
Been an honor.
So much fun.
I really appreciate the invite. Thank you so much.
For us too.
Yeah, absolutely. Love to have you back on sometime because, we enjoy conversations like this where
that would be awesome. I'd love
we all get engaged and
smart, passionate people.
Yes.
Smart, passionate people. Don't vote for assholes, kids. Okay. If you'll stay with us, though, because we roll the credits and then we do a little Easter egg. Usually when we have interview guests, we like to ask them a couple of fun little rapid fire questions.
One little extra scene, like at the end of a Marvel movie. So you watch the credits and you stick around.
Yeah.
Like the ending to Ferris Bueller's.
Exactly.
Yes. All right, kids and cubs. That's the end of this episode of the True North Eager Beaver interview project. We hope that you love listening to us because we loved making this for you, and particularly today. Thank you very much, sir. Because sharing is caring and word of mouth is priceless, please let your peeps and poops know all about us, because democracy is something that you do. Make sure that you go get your XBB shot. Make sure that you go get your flu shot, pneumococcal shot, all the shots. Let's do our best to keep our hospitals unclogged and give our healthcare staff an actual normal winter for a change. That would be so very nice. And if you can, please write your letters to the editor, but particularly to your elected representatives. Ask for a meeting and make sure if you do it in handwriting, because that's the one that they pay attention to. And of course, if you have a little extra change jingling in your pocket, make sure you make a donation to the Red Cross, because the need is great. This last summer was devastating.
Mm-hmm.
If you would like to reach us, our email address is truenortheagerbeaver@gmail.com. And if you would like to subscribe to make sure that you do not miss an episode whatsoever, the pod page, sponsored by the wonderful The Ray Girl, that little squiggly right there. If you bring your phone to that, that'll bring you there. And if you don't have your phone with you, you go to podpage.com/the True North Eager Beaver, lowercase letters with a hyphen between each one of those words. And that way you will not miss an episode. When it's fresh off the bandwidth, you will get it straight in your inbox. Well, not straight, but you know what I mean, right? And if you like to smash kits, we have not one, not two, but 3 buttons. Let your freak flags fly. Go to our
share, and subscribe.
Yes. Go to our True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated YouTube channel. Like, share, subscribe, because there are 3 favorite words other than Mr. Grizzly.
Free beer today.
And if you would like to help us with free beer today by donating to the Eager Beaver Lodge Emergency Hydration Fund, so that you can keep our voices humected, so that we can deliver this product to you. Well, that little squiggly that was just by Mr. Grizzly's head brings you to our emergency fund. And thank you very much for contributing. We don't actually spend it all on beer, but some does actually go back into the show. But it helps us a lot, and it's getting, your donations are appreciated. If you can't, that's okay. The gift of your attention matters, and word of mouth does help a lot. From the Beaver Lodge, this is your Eager Beaver saying, it could be a tough world out there, so please be kind to and gentle with yourself. Mr. Grizzly, some words of wisdom, please.
Yeah, I need to. So, I've been going through some stuff the last couple of last 24 or 48 hours. I had a bit of a revelatory moment, realization that somebody helped me realize, and I'm dealing with it. So I haven't been myself, and I'm a little off right now. I'm working on it, and I will endeavor to be back as quickly as I can. But what I'm trying to say is, if you feel you need help with an emotional issue, depression or anxiety, or any of the, the terrible things that I have to battle with on a daily basis, seek help. Talk to a friend. Talk to your doctor. Medication may be for you, maybe not for you, but don't let it go, because if you let it go, it can become a problem. And as you know, trauma is something we all have, and it never goes away. It is there permanently, but you can help yourself by getting the help you need, and you can get the tools that will help you to alleviate some of the symptoms of the trauma. It's always going to be there, but you can learn how to live a little bit better. So, yeah, I'm working on something right now that I don't know if I'm going to talk about it in a big forum, even on my ASMR channel. I don't know if I'm going to do that, because I need, this is a very new thing to that. So I apologize that I've not been myself the last couple of days, but I'm working towards it. So take care of yourselves is what I'm getting at.
And Tim, since you are our guest, do you have some words of wisdom for our kids?
I agree with Grizzly. Take care of yourself. I think that it's epically heroic to admit you need help, and it it takes great courage. And the other thing that I would just finish with this: we need you to. Democracy is very important. We need you out there, but if you don't take care of yourself first, you're not going to be the perfect person that we need for you to get engaged with the community. So take care of yourself, get exercise, eat right, get some sleep, and then you're ready to go to get involved in the 2025 election.
All right. And remember, if you need to take a break, just hand us the baton. We'll run the leg. When you're ready to jump back in, we got you.
We got you.
Mr. Grizzly, roll the credits. Tim, stay with us.
Absolutely.
You are listening to a True North Eager Beaver media podcast. The True North Eager Beaver podcasts are proudly brought to you by our founding sponsors, the Miss V Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, your source for science fiction, fantasy, and cozy mysteries featuring a broad diversity of characters. CanadianTarot.com, your uniquely Canadian online eclectic tarot community and forum, and The Peppermaster, hot pepper sauces made from fresh farm ingredients to thrill your taste buds and expand your mind.
All right. Rapid fire fun questions.
You're right. This flew by. It was like an hour 30.
Right? I told you it would fly by. I don't know why that happens with us when we have conversations, but all of a sudden I look up and say, oh, because actually Tim had asked us, and I said, it probably wouldn't take more than an hour today. Here we are. All right. Rapid fire questions, fun ones. First things that come to mind.
Okay.
Favorite drink?
Water with lime.
Ooh. Favorite sport?
Football and golf.
Okay.
But I'll go football.
Favorite musical artist?
I love 5440.
Oh, great band. Great band.
Good choice. Pancakes or waffles?
Pancakes.
Coffee, tea, or hot chocolate?
Coffee. I'm a teacher.
Would say hot chocolate.
Oh, I mix a little hot chocolate powder with it. Does that help?
Okay.
That's a mochaccino.
And your happy place?
Being with my kids.
That's nice.
That's nice.
Thank you so very much.
Thank you, guys. That was a thrill. I've never been on one of these before.
A lot of fun, eh?
It really is. I love discussion. I hope I didn't talk too much. I apologize.
We're good. We're good.
No, the point was to have you talk.
Exactly.
Okay.
That was the point. So
Alrighty.
thank you so much. Thank you.
Now I'll subscribe.
Okay.
Oh, cool. Fantastic. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And is there any way that you could send me a copy of this?
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, when we put it up, definitely we will send you a copy.
Okay.
We will let you know
Awesome.
when it's up.
Because my 80-year-old mom won't get up at 7, but it'd be nice to show her,
Yep, absolutely. Once it's up,
Alrighty.
we will let you know, and then you'll be able to show her.
Okay. Thanks,
Hi,
guys.
Mom, by the way. Hi, Mom.
Hey, awesome. Say hi, Judith.
Hey, Judith. How you doing?
That's awesome.
Alrighty.
Have a
See ya.
beaverific day.